All right, let's see this thing. Watch out, Mason. Wow, not an inch to spare. That's insane. And there you have it. I wonder if these are instructions. They feel a little thin. These are our brackets, which space the rear subframe. 2 of those. This looks like the shock relocation bracket. Another bracket. Some more spacers. And this is what I'm looking for. Spindle. Definitely a beefy piece. Has some form of bushings with the Zerk fitting. That's nice. But yeah, it's just a big, heavy, beefy cast steel spindle. So we're going to start with the front. That's the easier part, and then we will work our way to the back. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do is remove the hub plastic cover. Very simple. Straightforward. It's wonderful when it's brand new. 18mm. Popped it right loose. And that pops out. So now we can use our 14mm and remove this steering arm. Okay, which I believe is also 14. It is. And she's free. And it looks like these grease caps, yep, grease caps and possibly the bushing, yep, transfer right over to the Rhox unit. So let's get this swapped over and see how she fits. So now I got my grease. We're gonna take off our cap, top and bottom, and the bushing. Boy, that bushing is dry. Really no grease on this thing. It's kind of surprising. There's no real wear, a little tiny bit of wear right here. But for this spindle, it has a Zerk fitting, and for now, we are just gonna put some grease on this, and then we can pump it full of grease once it's fully assembled. And then drive it to the top. And that way, spin it and rotate it, it all gets a good coating. And what I'm doing right now, I'm just feeling around the bushing. If there's any burrs or sharp edges, there is some overspray, some paint on the bushing itself, and this cap is going to ride on it. So now I'm going to get grease in here. Boy, this was kind of assembled dry. I hate to say it for Yamaha, but you gotta call an ace an ace. There was really no grease in these caps, and we know if there's no grease, what likes to get in there is water. So your cap just slides right on. Very straightforward. Same with this side. We're gonna get that rubber seal nice and lubricated. And that is it. Very easy. Grab my deep socket actually. And then I'm going to do it by hand just to make sure I'm happy with that torque. Yep. These do have a little play left to right when the bolts are loose, so getting them tight is quick. Now we are going to get our flanged lock nut and put our tie rod back on. Now our spindle, and this seal again is also a little dry. I'm not sure what's going on with the Yamaha. Then always feel around where the seal's resting, again, to make sure there are no burrs, make sure where the bearings in the rod or the inner race, that it's all smooth, which it is. And I'm gonna have to, there we go, just push it off a little more force. Yep, that'll be good. Now we can put our washer and our lock nut. And then if you can see here, it actually has a place for a cotter key, which I like. And that's it. Very straightforward, start to finish, maybe 10 minutes. So oddly enough, they actually don't include a keeper. So I had to dig, and I actually have a box full of them, but just make a note. Not really sure what happened there. Looked in the hardware kit, expecting to find 2 of them. They weren't there. And as far as these bearings, these are sealed bearings, so I'm not worried about the grease in those. There you go. Put your cap on, and that is done. I went ahead and pulled a measurement, and from the center of the new axle to the center of the kingpin, there is a 2 1/4 inch forward push to extend the wheelbase over your factory knuckle, which is a completely straight knuckle. So for good or worse, I have no clue, but it does give you clearance, and being a 3-inch lift, I do want to try to tuck 23-inch street tires on this thing at some point, and I think it is pretty necessary. So we're going to move on to the other side. It is a duplicate, nothing different, and then we'll move on to the rear. That's a pretty big difference right there. Okay, the front spindles are finished. It was very simple, as we expected. And look how good that front end looks now. Okay, so the cover's off. There is a retainer clip. Let me show you real quick. Right here. And right here, that you will have to use a plastic pry bar to lift up on, because the bed is kind of in the way. But it removes pretty easy. And let's show you the rear end. Very, very nice design. So from what I'm seeing right here, I see no problem. We have plenty of wiring harness that can drop down. Since the motor and transmission is sitting on our subframe, there is no reason why I would need to move these, which you do have to do on a gas car. Everything looks like it should work, so let's start loosening some bolts and see what happens. Okay, so we got this bolt out, and now we're going to remove this one right here on the subframe, and then we'll move on to the front. Ironically, I am actually going through the hatch, and I have taken off the nut on each shock tower, And now I'm going to try to use the jack to free float it to get the bolts out. And we're kind of just going to see what happens here. The rear bolts are out. I have loosened the fronts on the subframe. And we're going to try to get a balancing act to get this thing to free float and then drop. Good thing I have 3 jacks, because one jack needs to support that skid plate so you can loosen everything. And you need a jack on each side to hold the chassis up. And I free floated it to where my shocks, I can get the bolts out. So let's lower this down slowly. And then start jacking this up. Alright, now we need to lower these shocks out the way enough to get the new mount in. So this might take a little bit of doing. Oh, there we go. He was caught right there. I was just looking at it. Let me move this side back. It's literally free floating. This would definitely be a 2-person job if you have the option. But it's like 1 in the morning, as always. That's when I work on my projects. Kids are asleep. Wife is asleep, hopefully. Hope the kids aren't driving her crazy. And now let's take a look where our shocks are. Beautiful. Beautiful. And as you can see, all of our wire connections still have some slack. Nothing's tight. That's just a breather hose for the diff, and it's just zip tied. So, and there's a fair amount of wire left. So let's get our drop brackets mounted and the upper shock tower. We're going to install this piece first, and it will go just like this. Like so. Alright, so using 3 jacks to the trick. I would not recommend doing this with 1 person. It kind of sucked. Wiggling everything around for these brackets to line up. Then for the rear, same. It was a lot of moving and shaking trying to get the threads to catch and not cross thread it and the whole 9 yards. You really need 2 people to help line it up and then thread it in. But here's the drum brakes. Better look at your bracket. It is kind of strange how it just drops like that. I would have liked to see something incorporate into that bracket right there. But hey, you know, maybe that's something I'll do in the future. So now let's get these rear wheels mounted, and it is pretty much done. So we still have to put the rear step on, the rear cover, but I am toast tonight, guys. I think it's like 3 in the morning. I'm pooped. All right, so we might have a small issue here. The garage sure seems lower than the roof line here. And maybe I can adjust this to come up a little bit higher. I don't know. This kind of looks like a problem here. So let's see what happens. Right next to my car. Bring the camera over here. Oh wow, it clears. I think by like an inch. All right, let's see this thing. Watch out, Mason.
You hit it
Wow, not an inch to spare. That's insane. And there you have it. 22s. Oh, my children. 3-inch Rhox lift. Independent rear suspension. Now with the 10-inch rim, because it just looks so much like more beefy, just off-road looking. Love it. All right, last little mod that we had to do was just trim the inside corner right here. I didn't want to trim the outside corner because I like how this rolls over. It's nice and smooth. If you have a live rear axle and not the IRS, it actually, when you lift it, it pivots that swing arm downward. And you do have to trim it because now the center of your wheel is now moved forward, which really bothers my brain. The IRS stays dead center when you lift it, so you don't have that problem. But with a larger radius and the travel, you still need to make a little room. Now I trimmed it a small amount here. I'm gonna load it down with a few buddies, and then we'll really see how much more we need to take. I think it's enough right there. But overall, loving the look. The tires are a little rumbly. They have 12 PSI on them right now. Might try to air them down just a hair, maybe to like 10. Can't go too low because then you get a bunch of rolling resistance. But overall, really happy with the build. Steering feels good, still steady on the road, no problems. So, thumbs up from me. If you like this video, smash that like button. As always, thanks for watching.